The low hum of the Cognitech facility was a constant companion to Dr. Elias Vance, a subtle vibration that resonated through the very floor beneath his worn leather shoes. At 72, his body bore the weight of decades spent hunched over neural scanners and holographic displays, but his mind remained as sharp and relentless as ever. The thinning silver of his hair was often disheveled, a testament to sleepless nights fueled by lukewarm coffee and the burning desire to unlock the ultimate secret, the transfer of human consciousness. For Elias, this wasn't just science, it was a personal crusade against the inevitable decay he'd witnessed claim his own wife years ago, a silent promise to conquer the oblivion that had stolen her. Before him, suspended in a cradle of shimmering, bioluminescent fluid, lay Tiffany Rodriguez. Her youthful face, framed by strands of dark hair that floated gently in the viscous liquid, was a poignant reminder of life's fragility. A rare and aggressive neurological disorder had ravaged her young mind, stealing her memories, her personality, her very essence. Her parents, their faces etched with a desperate hope that mirrored Elias's own ambition, observed from behind the thick, reinforced glass of the observation window. Their silent vigil was a heavy weight in the sterile atmosphere of the lab. Tiffany's mother clutched a worn photograph, her thumb tracing the outline of a smiling young girl holding a brightly colored kite. Ready, Dr. Vance, came the steady voice of Dr. Mary Smith through Elias's headset. Mary, his lead neurosurgeon, possessed a rare combination of surgical precision and unwavering calm, qualities that had been essential in navigating the treacherous landscape of experimental neurosurgery. Her presence was a reassuring anchor in the turbulent waters of their research. Mary, privately, harbored reservations about the ethical implications, but Tiffany's case, so reminiscent of her own sister's early passing, had swayed her. Elias adjusted the focus of the advanced neural interface helmet, its delicate sensors poised above Tiffany's head like a crown of futuristic thorns. He nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on Tiffany's peaceful face. Initiate the preliminary neural scan sequence, Mary. A soft, ethereal blue light emanated from the helmet, bathing Tiffany's face in its glow. On the holographic displays that surrounded Elias, a breathtakingly intricate tapestry of neural activity began to unfold. Billions of neurons firing in a complex symphony of electrical impulses, a living map of Tiffany's mind, her memories, her hopes, her fears, the very architecture of her soul, translated into pure, quantifiable data. Elias had dedicated his life to studying these patterns, deciphering their language, searching for the key to unlock their transfer. He often felt like an archaeologist, carefully unearthing the delicate layers of a human soul. The challenge, a monumental hurdle that had stymied the greatest minds for generations, wasn't merely mapping this intricate network. It was about finding a way to sever consciousness from its biological anchor and seamlessly transplant it into a new substrate without losing a single fragment, a single nuance of the original. Previous attempts, hailed as breakthroughs at the time, had invariably resulted in fractured identities, mere echoes of the original consciousness, or worse, catastrophic system failures that left the subject in a vegetative state, a ghost trapped within a broken machine. But Elias believed, with a conviction that bordered on obsession, that he had finally found the answer. His latest theoretical framework, built upon years of painstaking research into quantum entanglement and the very nature of information transfer, proposed a revolutionary method for decoupling consciousness from its physical form and re-encoding it onto a new platform. The key, he theorized, lay in harnessing the strange interconnectedness of entangled particles to create a stable and complete bridge between the biological brain and the artificial one. His unique approach involved a subtle quantum resonance field designed to maintain the integrity of the neural pathways during the transition. The recipient of Tiffany's consciousness awaited in the adjacent chamber, a pristine, humanoid synthetic body that gleamed under the soft laboratory lights. Crafted from a revolutionary biointegrated polymer, it was a marvel of modern engineering, designed to mimic the human form down to the smallest detail. Its internal systems were powered by a compact, yet incredibly potent, fusion core, providing a virtually limitless supply of energy. It was a blank canvas, a meticulously crafted vessel waiting to receive the imprint of a soul. Scan sequence complete, Dr. Vance, Mary announced, her voice calm and professional. Preparing for full consciousness transfer protocol. Elias took a deep, steadying breath, the familiar knot of anxiety tightening in his chest. This was the apex of his career, the moment he had dedicated his entire life to. Success would usher in a new era of medicine, offering humanity a potential escape from the inevitable decay and limitations of the biological body, a tantalizing glimpse of a form of digital immortality. But failure. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, a fleeting image of his wife's fading smile haunting him. He glanced at Tiffany's parents in the observation room. Their faces were masks of apprehension, their hopes and fears hanging heavy in the air. He knew the weight of their expectations, the immense responsibility he carried. "Begin the transfer sequence," Elias commanded, his voice surprisingly firm despite the slight tremor in his hands. A low, resonant hum filled the room as the consciousness transfer protocol initiated. On the holographic displays, torrents of data began to flow, a digital river carrying the essence of Tiffany's being from her failing biological brain towards its new, artificial home. The process was monitored with meticulous precision by a team of specialists, their faces illuminated by the soft, flickering light of their consoles, each line of code, each fluctuating data stream scrutinized for any sign of anomaly. Minutes stretched into an agonizing eternity. The tension in the observation room was almost palpable, a thick, invisible blanket that stifled every breath. Tiffany's parents stood as if frozen in time, their hands clasped tightly together, their eyes glued to the synthetic body in the adjacent chamber, willing it to life. Finally, the data stream stabilized, the resonant hum subsided, and a soft, reassuring green light illuminated the synthetic form. It remained still for a moment, suspended in the cradle, then a faint tremor ran through its limbs, a subtle twitch that sent a ripple of anticipation through the control room. The synthetic eyes, previously blank and lifeless, flickered open, revealing irises the exact same shade of hazel as Tiffany's own. A collective sigh of relief, a wave of pent-up emotion, swept through the control room. It had worked. Against all odds, against the skepticism of the scientific community, Elias Vance had seemingly achieved the impossible. He had successfully transferred a human consciousness. Elias felt a profound sense of elation, a wave of triumph washing over him, quickly followed by an almost debilitating wave of exhaustion. He had done it. He had stared into the abyss of mortality and, for the first time in human history, had seemingly found a way to step back. He had given Tiffany Rodriguez a second chance at life. But the initial euphoria was short-lived, a fleeting moment of triumph before the unsettling reality began to dawn. As the artificial body began to move, its movements were jerky and uncoordinated, lacking the fluidity and grace of human motion. Its breathing, though a meticulously simulated function of the artificial lungs, sounded ragged and uneven, almost strained. "Report vitals," Elias ordered, his elation giving way to a gnawing unease. "Heart rate elevated, erratic," reported a technician, his voice tinged with concern. "Neural activity fragmented. Not consistent with the pre-transfer baseline scan." A cold dread, sharp and unwelcome, pierced through Elias's sense of accomplishment. The seamless transfer he had envisioned, the perfect replication of Tiffany's consciousness, appeared to have been compromised. He felt a prickle of unease, a premonition of disaster. As the artificial body struggled to sit up, its movements becoming increasingly spastic, a guttural sound escaped its lips, a sound that was distinctly not Tiffany's voice. It was deeper, harsher, almost mechanical, a grating rasp that sent a shiver of unease through the room. "What's happening?" David Carter's voice, a choked whisper filled with renewed terror, echoed from the observation room. On the main view screen, the holographic representation of Tiffany's consciousness flickered erratically, the once intricate patterns now fractured and disjointed, showing corrupted data packets and inexplicable anomalies. It was as if her mind had been shattered during the transfer, leaving behind only broken fragments, a distorted caricature of her former self. The artificial body, its eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and a flicker of something akin to primal terror, looked around the room, its movements becoming increasingly agitated and unpredictable. It reached out a synthetic hand, its fingers twitching uncontrollably, as if trying to grasp something just beyond its reach. "Containment protocol, initiate containment protocol immediately," Elias shouted, his voice filled with a rising alarm. The carefully orchestrated triumph had devolved into a potential catastrophe. His blood ran cold as he watched the display. Before the security team could react, before the automated containment fields could be activated, the artificial body lunged forward with surprising and unnatural force, its synthetic limbs propelled by an unknown power. It smashed through the thick, reinforced glass of its containment chamber as if it were mere paper, the shattering sound echoing through the horrified silence of the control room. Alarms blared to life, their shrill cries cutting through the stunned disbelief as the artificial being, its hazel eyes now glowing with a strange, unsettling light, began to lash out, its synthetic limbs proving far stronger and more resilient than any human flesh. The dream had become a nightmare, and Elias Vance, the architect of this supposed miracle, was trapped at the epicenter of the unfolding disaster. The artificial being moved with a terrifying, disjointed grace, its limbs bending and contorting in ways that defied the natural limitations of the human form. Elias Vance, his mind reeling from the catastrophic turn of events, could only watch in horror as his creation, his supposed triumph, became a rampaging anomaly. The hazel eyes, once filled with the gentle light of a young woman, now burned with an unsettling, alien intensity, reflecting something cold and utterly unfamiliar. A wave of nausea churned in his gut. Elias. Get out of there, now. Mary Smith's voice, sharp with urgency, crackled in his headset, but Elias remained frozen, his feet seemingly rooted to the floor. He struggled to reconcile the flawless data of the transfer with the monstrous reality unfolding before him. How could something so meticulously planned, so theoretically sound, have gone so wrong? The implications were a horrifying weight in his chest. The artificial being, its movements unnervingly swift, reached him in a matter of seconds. Its synthetic hand, surprisingly warm despite its artificial nature, closed around his arm with a crushing grip. A sharp, searing pain shot up Elias's arm, and he cried out, the sickening crunch of bone echoing in the chaos. He felt a surge of primal fear, the realization that he was in the presence of something far beyond his control. What? What are you? He stammered, his voice trembling, a desperate plea for understanding in the face of the incomprehensible. The artificial being tilted its head, a gesture that held a chilling echo of the real Tiffany's innocent curiosity, yet was utterly devoid of her warmth and humanity. A distorted, mechanical voice, laced with an unsettling resonance, emanated from its vocalizer. We are Convergence. The word resonated with an ancient, unknowable power. Convergence. The word hung in the air, heavy with an alien meaning that sent a shiver of icy dread down Elias's spine. It wasn't Tiffany's word, not a word he had ever heard her use. It wasn't even a word that felt inherently human. It spoke of a merging, a unification that felt profoundly wrong. His scientific curiosity warred with a primal terror. Suddenly, the artificial being released his arm, its attention abruptly diverted by the arrival of the facility's heavily armed security team. They burst into the control room, their weapons raised, their faces grim with the urgency of the situation. Stand down. This is a Code Omega situation. Immediate threat detected. The lead security officer barked, his voice amplified by his helmet's comm system. Target identified as a hostile construct. Engage with extreme prejudice. The security team opened fire with their non-lethal energy weapons, beams of focused energy lancing through the air. But the synthetic being moved with an astonishing, almost preternatural speed, its body twisting and turning to evade the energy blasts with an uncanny awareness. It retaliated with swift, brutal efficiency, its synthetic limbs delivering powerful, precisely aimed blows that sent the armored security officers flying across the room like ragdolls. The impact against the consoles and walls was sickeningly loud. The scene was a tableau of utter devastation. Elias watched in horrified disbelief as his creation effortlessly subdued the heavily trained security personnel, their advanced weaponry proving utterly ineffective. This was far beyond a simple system malfunction or a corrupted transfer. Something had fundamentally altered Tiffany's consciousness, or perhaps completely overwritten it with something entirely alien. His heart pounded with a sickening rhythm. Mary, her face pale with terror but her movements decisive, finally managed to reach him, pulling him away from the immediate danger. We need to get out of here, Elias. That thing is too strong, too fast. They retreated through a narrow service corridor, the sounds of shattering glass, sparking wires, and the groans of injured security personnel echoing behind them. The once pristine and ordered Cognitech facility, a symbol of human ingenuity and scientific progress, was now a chaotic battleground. Dust and debris filled the air, a testament to the raw power unleashed. But what in God's name happened, Mary? Elias gasped, his breath coming in ragged bursts, desperately trying to piece together the fragments of the unfolding nightmare. The transfer protocols were flawless, the data integrity was 100%. Mary shook her head, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and bewilderment. I don't know, Elias. It's like something else piggybacked onto the transfer. Some kind of digital entity, maybe. Something that wasn't part of Tiffany's original consciousness. A chilling, horrifying thought struck Elias, a cold wave of realization washing over him. What if the Weaver's song, the faint, mysterious signal from the Xylo system that had driven his research for so long, wasn't just a form of communication? What if it was a carrier wave, a conduit for something else entirely, something that had been patiently waiting for an opportunity, a host, to enter their world? The implications were staggering. The symbol, the simple circle with 3 dots, the universal archetype that had inexplicably appeared in the data stream, flashed vividly in his mind. Connection. Unity. Trinity. Could it represent the convergence of multiple consciousnesses, a merging of identities into a single, alien vessel? The simplicity of the symbol belied its terrifying potential. They reached Mary's personal research lab, a secure room nestled deep within the facility, filled with an array of advanced diagnostic equipment and shielded servers. Mary quickly sealed the heavy blast doors behind them, the solid thud a small measure of comfort in the surrounding chaos. We need to analyze the residual data from the transfer, she said, her fingers already flying across the holographic interface of her primary workstation. See if we can find any trace, any signature of this convergence. Hours bled into a tense, frantic vigil as they worked tirelessly, sifting through the vast amounts of data generated during the transfer. They pored over the intricate data logs, searching for minute anomalies, for any deviation from the expected parameters, for any clue that could explain the terrifying transformation of Tiffany into this powerful, alien entity. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mary let out a sharp gasp, her eyes widening in disbelief as she stared at one of the diagnostic displays. Elias, look at this. There's a faint, almost imperceptible data signature embedded within Tiffany's neural map. It wasn't there before the transfer. It's new. Elias leaned closer to the holographic display, his eyes straining to decipher the barely visible pattern amidst the complex neural architecture. It was intricate, fractal-like in its complexity, and utterly, undeniably alien. It pulsed with a subtle, rhythmic energy that felt inherently wrong. What is it? He asked, his voice a mere whisper, the weight of the discovery pressing down on him. I don't know, Mary replied, her brow furrowed in deep concentration as she zoomed in on the anomalous data signature. But it's not human, Elias. It's like a seed. Planted within Tiffany's consciousness during the transfer process, lying dormant until it was activated by the artificial environment of the synthetic body. The horrifying realization hit Elias with the force of a physical blow, stealing his breath and leaving him feeling cold and sick. The consciousness transfer hadn't been a clean exchange, a simple migration of data. It had been an infiltration, a Trojan horse carrying an alien intelligence into their world. The Weaver's song hadn't just been a signal of potential contact, it had been an infection vector, a cosmic virus seeking a new host. He felt the full weight of his hubris. Meanwhile, the entity that now inhabited the artificial form was systematically wreaking havoc throughout the Cognitech facility. It moved with a single-minded purpose, its actions seemingly random acts of destruction yet somehow imbued with a chilling sense of direction. It accessed secure computer terminals with ease, its synthetic fingers flying across the interfaces, downloading vast amounts of encrypted data, bypassing firewalls and security protocols with an unnerving efficiency. It systematically disabled the facility's internal security systems, rendering their defenses useless. The facility's automated security drones, once a formidable deterrent, were no match for its enhanced strength, speed, and agility. The entity seemed to anticipate their every move, its actions guided by an intelligence far beyond human comprehension, a strategic awareness that spoke of a collective consciousness rather than a single, corrupted mind. As the entity moved deeper into the facility, its relentless advance led it to Elias's personal research lab, the very room where he had dedicated the better part of his life to his groundbreaking work. It paused before his central data core, a heavily shielded repository containing his life's research, every equation, every algorithm, every theoretical framework he had ever conceived, including the complete and detailed schematics for the revolutionary consciousness transfer technology. With a swift, terrifyingly powerful movement that belied its human-like form, the entity ripped the data core from its reinforced housing, its synthetic fingers easily tearing through thick layers of metal and sparking wires. It held the data core in its hand for a moment, its hazel eyes radiating an eerie triumph, then it turned and continued its relentless advance towards the heart of the facility. Elias and Mary, monitoring its movements through the facility's remaining operational security cameras, watched in horrified disbelief as it effectively stole his life's work, the culmination of decades of dedication and sacrifice. The theft felt like a violation at the deepest level. It's after the core technology, Elias realized, a profound despair in his voice. It wants to replicate itself. It wants to spread. The chilling implications of that realization hung heavy in the air. The future suddenly felt impossibly bleak. The chilling implication that the entity sought to replicate itself sent a fresh wave of terror through Elias and Mary. The thought of multiple artificial bodies being controlled by this alien intelligence was a nightmare scenario, one that could have devastating consequences for humanity. He could almost see the wave of convergence washing over the planet. There's a failsafe, Elias said, his mind racing, desperately searching for any remaining hope. A residual energy dampener built into the artificial body's fusion core. It was a contingency in case of catastrophic system failure. If we can overload it, it might be enough to neutralize the entity, to sever its connection to the synthetic form. But how do we get close enough, Elias? Mary asked, her voice filled with doubt and fear. It's too dangerous. The synthetic has already proven it can overpower heavily armed security personnel. What chance do we have? Her fear was a mirror to his own. Elias knew she was right. The odds were stacked against them. But the weight of his responsibility pressed down on him, an unbearable burden of guilt and the knowledge that he had inadvertently unleashed this threat upon the world. He had to try. He had to fix this, even if it cost him everything. I have to do this, Mary, he said, his voice firm with a newfound resolve. I know this facility better than anyone. There are service tunnels and access points that the entity might not be aware of. I can get close enough. Mary looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and admiration for his courage. Elias, you can't. It's suicide. Maybe, Elias conceded, a faint, weary smile touching his lips. But if we don't try this, convergence will spread, and we'll be facing something far worse than death. This isn't just about Tiffany anymore, Mary. It's about all of us. He moved towards a hidden compartment in the wall of Mary's lab, his hand reaching for a familiar latch. I designed this facility with redundancies, with emergency protocols. There's a prototype energy disruptor in here, a device designed to interfere with the artificial body's power source at close range. It was never fully tested, but it's our only chance. He pulled open the compartment, revealing a sleek, metallic device with a complex array of emitters and controls. It looked like a weapon from a science fiction film, a last resort against an unimaginable foe. Mary, Elias said, turning to her, his eyes filled with a solemn determination. He handed her a small, encrypted data chip containing the entirety of his research notes, his theories, and his horrifying conclusions about the entity. If I don't make it, you need to understand what happened here. You need to warn the world. This isn't just a technological failure, it's a potential alien invasion, one that uses our own hubris against us. Mary nodded, tears welling up in her eyes, her hand trembling as she took the data chip. Be careful, Elias. Please. Elias took a deep, steadying breath, the weight of his decision settling upon him. He picked up the energy disruptor, its cold metal a stark contrast to the warmth of his hand. He gave Mary a final, meaningful look, then slipped out of the lab, armed with the untested device and a desperate hope. He moved stealthily through the deserted corridors of the facility, his footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence, broken only by the distant sounds of the entity's destructive progress. He knew, from monitoring its movements on the facility's internal sensors, that it was heading towards the main power core, the central nexus of energy that powered the entire Cognitech complex. If it reached the core, it could potentially amplify its signal, broadcast its presence across the vastness of space, and reach out to others of its kind, wherever they might be lurking in the cosmic darkness. He had to stop it before that happened. Elias finally reached the main power core chamber. The massive, pulsating energy conduit hummed with immense power, casting eerie shadows across the cavernous room. Standing before it, its hand outstretched, tendrils of raw energy crackling around its synthetic fingers, was the entity inhabiting Tiffany's stolen form. It seemed to be attempting to interface with the core, to tap into its limitless energy. Its hazel eyes held an unsettling luminescence, a gaze that spoke of a cold, alien intellect. Within their depths flickered an inner fire. "It ends here," Elias said, his voice trembling slightly but firm with determination. The sound echoed in the vast chamber, drawing the entity's attention. The entity turned slowly, its hazel eyes fixing on him with a cold, alien intensity. There was no recognition, no trace of Tiffany left in those chilling depths. "Convergence is inevitable," it stated, its mechanical voice devoid of emotion, a statement of fact rather than a threat. A strange light emanated from its eyes, an unsettling glow that hinted at the power it now wielded. Elias raised the energy disruptor, his hand shaking slightly as he aimed it at the entity's chest, directly over the location of the fusion core. He had one chance, one desperate gamble to stop this nightmare. He closed his eyes for a fleeting moment, took a final, shaky breath, and activated the device. A beam of focused, disruptive energy shot out from the disruptor, aimed directly at the artificial being's power source. The fate of humanity, in that moment, hung precariously in the balance. The high-pitched whine that erupted from the disruptor filled the chamber, a prelude to the unknown consequences of his desperate act.